come to order. Pleasure for me to be a part of this committee now and work with everyone on these issues we face. Erica Hammonds is our new clerk of this committee, and I ask her to call roll.
Representative Klaus.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Representative Campbell.
Here.
Representative Bracey. Representative Crawford. Representative Easterbrook.
Here.
Representative Gibbon. Here. Representative Hollis. Present. Representative Halsey.
Here.
Representative Kirkland.
Here.
Representative Lipscomb.
Here.
Representative Marcus.
Here.
Representative Moore.
Here.
Representative Travis.
Here.
Representative Wilcox. Here. We have a
Okay, we got a quorum. I'll ask everyone please mute their phones, and we'll start off with Senate Bill 42 by Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll mute my phone for you. This bill is simply a property rights bill. If you had a eminent domain or just an easement that was provided for a state road or some other state entity or also local county municipality, and it gets abandoned, and now this applies if it's been repurposed, but this is just abandoned. If it's been abandoned and the landowner owns both sides of the road, or both landowners on both sides of the road agree, then they can petition the local government to get back that easement. So if I was a farmer, had on one side of the road a pasture that I had cows, I lived on the other side, I don't have to worry about crossing that abandoned road. I could fence it, make it one continuous acreage. So it's just a property rights issue. I do have that amendment that states that if it's, which I think is a little bit redundant, but it just makes it clear that it's been converted or is planned to be converted to a state trail or used for that purpose that I mentioned earlier, then it wouldn't apply to that.
Okay.
Just for full transparency and openness, if there is a federal grant involved, I'll have an amendment that I'll add onto the floor because I just found out about it after talking to Mr. Cooper, that may require not being allowed to abandon it because there are certain penalties if it was used to get with federal funds. So it has other considerations. So that amendment will simply say that if it's been purchased with federal funds, contingent on it being approved by ALDOT, then it can be repurposed or given back to the original owners or the current owners.
Okay, let's take that amendment first. I think Representative Marcus has that, and then we'll, if we can't explain the amendment, then we'll go to questions on the bill.
Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment. I think that everyone got it just a second ago. It is on page 2, line 53. It's replacing that whole second subset. Everybody can read it there. And Dr. Nelson, I think, just explained it about the trails and other projects. And there's a second line, 57 on page 3 that just, all it does is change the date. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I ask that the amendment be adopted.
Okay, we got a motion.
So moved.
Got a second by Representative Gibbons. Any questions on the amendment?
Well, questions. So, Senator, this is not through adverse possession. So this is a property that's abandoned and not one of the other owners like keeping the property up without interruption. This is just strictly abandoned, and then nobody's doing anything with it. And then so if they petition, then they're able to revert back to the owner if that's what they want.
Or the current owner to the adjacent land. Some of this stuff may have been 70, 80 years ago.
Okay.
So the current owner next to it would be able to do the same thing. If somebody bought it and it's been recent, obviously it'd be the current owner. But yes.
Okay. Okay.
So we're not trying to take something away that's being used by any means. It's simply if we have an abandoned road like Highway 64 through Lauderdale County, they moved it about a mile south to maybe half a mile south. Well, that old one is going through this farmer's field. Well, he can't legally stop anybody from running through that area, and then you get everything from, activity that's not able to be done in public areas. I'll just put it that way. So that's going on. This will allow him to fence it, stop it, take that land back if he petitioned to the local people or whoever the authority would be at that time. Probably the probate judge in most county situation, or the state if it was a state highway. But again, it has to be, which I'll add with that other amendment, it has to be comply with any if it was purchased with federal money.
Cause there is a thing that's called, whereas the owner can take care of a property for a certain length of time without interruption, and then the person can, acquire that land. So I just wanted to make sure I had it straight.
But this would be only a government entity
Right.
on the road, okay.
Right,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Representative Smith?
Thank you. A lot of this was, given, sold, or condemned years ago. How do we know for sure that it's gonna go back to the original owner?
It wouldn't necessarily be the original, it could be the current owner next to it.
Right, but what if it was not part of that? There's parts of it that were from two different farms, let's say.
Mhm. Then it would go to the middle section and if both owners on both sides asked to, could come to an agreement that it would go to the midline of the easement,
Okay.
then it would go back to there. If one person says, I'm not interested, I got enough, I got a good fence here, I'm happy where it's at, then the other person could petition to go to his fence and be able to get it. But if nobody wanted it, there would never be a petition filed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Representative Moore?
Who would bear the cost for the decommissioning?
To what?
To put it back to its natural state,
The new owner.
so it'd be up to the new owner?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect the county, and there's nothing in the legislation that says, if I currently own it, maybe I want to leave a road. Like if I am that farmer and it's got a good flat top on it with pavement, I would just keep it to get my equipment in and out. If I wanted to farm it, maybe I would take that road bed out and put it back to its original state. But he would have the control to do what repurpose he wants to with it.
Okay, got a motion and a second to adopt the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? All opposed, like sign. Amendment passes. So now, Senate Bill 42 as amended is before us. Representative Moore?
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to give the bill a favorable report.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Representative Moore and a second by Representative Hollis to give Senate Bill 42 as amended a favorable report. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. So Senate Bill 42 as amended passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we now have House Bill 323 by Representative Gibbons, and this is a public hearing, so we won't vote on this bill today. But Representative Gibbons, if you'll first give explanation of the bill, and then we'll go to public hearing.
Thank you, my esteemed colleagues. Well, as you all know, I spent 40+ years working for electric co-op. So I know safety is their number one with all these utilities. I feel like I can confidently say safety is their number one priority. And then serving their customers, their members, is second. So House Bill 323 amends Section 32-9-29. The provision of this bill is to exempt electric utility commodities from the requirement of obtaining oversized permit for movement on the state highway system. Now, under the existing law, agriculture is allowed this exemption. So we're just asking that utility companies be allowed the same exemption as agriculture. They're not going to haul anything overweight. Now, once in a many years, at the co-op, there was one Catamount transformer after a hurricane that had to be delivered, and it was delivered by helicopter. So it's not like, thank goodness for the utility industry, that these Catamount transformers are delivered on a daily basis, because you're talking major money and major problems to have one of these delivered. Current law states that it's illegal to drive a tractor-trailer combination longer than 57 feet. Well, most of your trailers nowadays, with your tractor and trailer, the trailers are being made longer. Trucks are being made longer. So we're not asking for additional weight. We're just asking for additional length to make it legal. That's one thing you'll find about the utility industries. Everything is about safety and doing what's right, doing what's legal. So that's why Bill 323 is important. They're highly regulated and safety conscious, as I said. The federal government has rules governing the weight limits on the road. And as I said, they're not like other industries where they're overloading trailers and trying to skirt the law. That's not the case here. So that's what we're asking for. We're just asking for the same as agriculture. And then I'll let the others speak on this. I'm just introducing the purpose of this bill.
Okay, now we'll go to the public hearing part first, and then we'll open up the question from the committees. Clerk, you'll call the first witness, and then we'll limit to 3 minutes if you don't mind.
George Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is George Connor. I am Deputy Director for Operations with Alabama DOT, and here speaking on behalf of Director Cooper and Chief Engineer Ed Austin. I echo Representative Gibbons' assessment of the safety consciousness and the focus on safety that our utilities do. We work very closely with moving equipment and have seen that firsthand. However, as drafted, this bill is both, in our opinion, unnecessary for reasons I'll explain, and it does create situations that will lead to unintended unsafe conditions. As far as the unnecessary part, right now already in place, we have issued many of them. We issue annual permits to utility companies, and they can request 24/7 movement. It's for trucks that are 75 feet long or less, 12 feet wide or less, 14 feet tall or lower, and up to 150,000 pounds. Representative Gibbons correctly pointed out that this bill does not change legal limits. Your authority, your protection from a ticket is from the permit that says you have permission to be on the road in excess of what legal lengths and legal weights are. The annual permit both protects the carrier, the hauler, the utility company who's moving commodities and equipment, as well as it enables us to help protect other users on the roadway. So there is a process in place to do exactly the functional needs that are being expressed here and that in previous meetings that we've had with the proponents for this action. Secondly, as written, it exempts all permits. So Representative Gibbons made the point, this wasn't for moving overweight, but all permits are stripped from the need to get a permit. And in 2023 to 2024, roughly in that time frame, we issued permits for over 100 just transformer moves to different electric utility companies that ranged anywhere from 80,000 pounds to excess of 600,000 pounds. And so this bill removes that legal requirement for a load that large, that heavy, that wide, and that tall from getting routed around safely to avoid damage to bridges and unnecessary impact to other folks. Many of these, it's not an everyday occurrence, but when a transformer blows, utilities respond very quickly. We have people that are on the phone, have a phone with them 24 hours a day to take those emergency requests for movement and respond and get them approval within minutes to where they need to go, but avoiding limited areas or places they should, for the safety of travelers, not be. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this time.
Blake Harwood.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I'm Blake Hardwick, and I'm here on behalf of the Energy Institute of Alabama. I serve as the executive director. The institute is made up of all of your power producers and distributors, from Alabama Power, Power South, TVA, to the rural electric co-ops, Alabama Municipal Electric Authority, and Electric Cities of Alabama. And all 6 of my members come in support of this bill. We had a very good conversation with ALDOT yesterday. It was our understanding that that annual permit was not something that is in place right now. If so, we would not be having the issues that we're having now and would have not approached Representative Gibbons on such a bill. Currently, as it stands, there is lack of clarity and there's vagueness surrounding this issue where, as I said, you know, the trucks have gotten a little bit longer, the trailers have gotten a little bit longer, and the utilities are not sure whether to get the permit or not. What he did address about your oversized, heavier weight, utilities would always request an extra permit for that size because we don't want to be on a county road or a state highway that has a bridge that's not safe when you're carrying such a load. But this annual permit that he addressed, we talked about yesterday, and we asked, you know, well, how come that hasn't been made available to us before? How come our drivers are confused? Currently, when we apply for a permit, the driver has to have the trailer and the truck match each other to get the permit. Under the annual permit that they talked about, you could just have the truck with an ALDOT code, and then you could use any trailer. For those of you that are familiar with the electric utility industry, there's many crews that will get in the truck and get whatever available trailer there is. Also, this permitting process, as it stands right now, is during standard maintenance time and emergency situations. And ALDOT's answer to, well, what if there's an emergency? Well, they can just call from the field and get a permit. Well, how does law enforcement know that they have a permit? Well, they can just print it out. Well, unfortunately, our utility trucks don't have printers in their trucks to be able to print out a permit. And so we've gotten some tickets, and that was the main issue is our utility providers that are getting tickets that also have a CDL license. It's a strike against their CDL, and once you get so many points to get your CDL, you lose your CDL, you use your driver's license, and you lose probably your job because of that.
Oh, you will.
And so that is why we're seeking for more clarity and vagueness. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Hart, does Aaliyah, I assume they play a role in this, right?
Yes, sir, and I would think Aaliyah would want more clarity as well, because the officers that are pulling over some instances that we had last year weren't aware of the permit situation, and so we had asked for something like this so that they would have the clarity to move forward.
Do they normally escort, or that they don't?
If it's a very large load, I believe they probably would escort. But the thing is you've got to have a printed permit, and if you don't have that printed permit, especially in times of emergency when they're repairing after a storm, therein lies one of the issues.
So, and I'm trying to make sure I understand this. You're saying right now the process would be that they would have to get a permit in a hurry, basically, whereas you prefer an annual permit that maybe does all of this?
Well, that was an idea that ALDOT threw out yesterday when we were meeting, but it is my understanding that that permit does not exist right now. And as many of y'all know, ALDOT's rules and their administrative procedures does not have overview by a legislative council or anyone else. So if they change their administrative law or their administrative rule, then there's no way for us to be able to know unless they inform us. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Representative Easterbrook?
You ever been denied a permit?
I would have to ask some of my utility providers if
I didn't hear the question, but.
ever been denied a permit.
I don't know.
What's the purpose of getting one?
The purpose is we had an issue last year, and I'm sure it's been more than just last year, because of trucks are being made longer. I mean, even a regular truck, and trailers are being made longer. You have to get a permit right now for a trailer and a truck to match each other. And right now they're outside of the normal length that a normal truck or trailer would be.
So what you're saying, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. So what you're saying is truck one has to be matched with truck, or trailer one. So if truck one gets trailer two, they're out of the range of the permit.
It is my understanding as of now, yes.
Any other comments or? Okay. Mr. Connor, you wanna make any other comments? or-
If I may, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'm here to tell you, yes, there are things about permitting and the laws and regulations that govern permitting that are complex and that leads to some lack of clarity. But we have right now annual permits in place available at request that do not require trucks and trailers to be matched. Other types of permits do for specific reasons, but for the annual permit, it is not. For the clarification, for education, for making people aware of what's available, to the extent that ALDOT has not messaged that as throughout the industry, we can address that absolutely and commit to you that we will. Secondly, our administrative procedures go through the our rules go through the Administrative Procedures Act and therefore go to a legislative group for review and public comment. So that's not exempt if our rules are subject to public review and legislative oversight. The issues and the overweight requirement, you said if the permit's never been denied, that they can recall why even get one in the first place. The reason for a permit is to identify, first of all, that the way that truck or truck trailer combination is configured does not damage the roads, that you don't have a single axle with 50,000 pounds on it and it ruts up roads, especially on lower volume rural roads, or it is not safe for bridges that are designed, older design standards, lower weight design vehicles. You may have heard some of your county officials talk about H10s and H10 type bridges in their inventory. The other thing is that we route for the heavier loads, we route those permits so that we can say, if you go this way, the lanes are restricted. This construction zone is down to 10 feet. You can't get your 12-foot wide piece of equipment through there. Take this route instead, and that's put into the permit. So there are very few permits that are denied, very few. But the reason that we issue a permit is that we can evaluate it, that it doesn't damage the road or bridges, and find that safe route and make that route part of the permit language so that everybody gets to where they can go as quickly as possible, but as safely as they can as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
More?
So just out of curiosity, y'all had mentioned earlier that y'all call, or they can call out in the field and get issued a permit. Who's to say what device they're using or what vehicle they're using out there? Is there a way that y'all have that in a request?
Yeah. So for emergency after hours calls, right, which is what we're talking about. Something happened overnight and they're moving a transformer from a warehouse out to where it's needed and they're putting it on a truck trailer. Call, they say, I'm putting it on my 8-axle truck and I've got this trailer and it's got this kind of thing and here's what it weighs. Our operators who do this every day, we issue over 600,000 permits a year across the state for all users. Our operators say, okay, I got you. And you take that, you can go this route to where you need to go, avoid this route. And then in the instances at night, they're correct. Trucks don't carry printers. The law says you're supposed to have a hard copy of your permit with you. But in these emergency situations, one of two things happens. The person that gave the verbal authority to approve, to move, calls Aaliyah Post and says there's going to be a move in your area. I gave the okay, they're going to do paperwork later. Or the person that stopped, if the trooper doesn't have that message, they say, call this number. I spoke to this person at ALDOT, and the trooper calls and gets a confirmation. And we get those calls. Most of the time, it's, yes, I did that. Sometimes people are alleging that they got that approval when they didn't. So when it's appropriate, the answer is, no, we never received that call. With our utilities, that's not the case. We have, at the operational level, we have a tremendously beneficial and positive working relationship with the folks that are responding to the incidences and moving stuff. We support them getting where they need to go as fast as possible, but in a way that's safe for everybody involved.
Representative Campbell.
Yes, sir.
Just an idea for you all to think about that. As in these emergency cases with all the advances in technology, I would think that you all could probably now send out an electronic, okay, once that emergency call is sent in. And that could serve in lieu of the hard copy, and it would also prevent any additional tickets being issued that you'd have to litigate later on. So for your consideration, you might consider that.
One last quick question, just for my understanding. You said that when ALDOT establishes rules and regulations, you bring before a legislative committee. Can you tell me what that committee is?
We go through whatever the prescription in the Administrative Procedures Act. And I've been there, but I don't know the name of the committee.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Givens, do you have any other comments on the bill or any questions for Representative Givens or committee members or any questions?
One question I'd like to ask, when you were talking about like 3 o'clock in the morning, when someone at ALDOT gets the call, because as you gave the example, a transformer needs to be moved from the warehouse to a job site, then this person goes off duty. You know, they've worked all night, so they go off duty. Then the next one comes on. What happens then?
So
If the information is not relayed?
So the person that is responding is on 24-hour on call. So that 3 a.m. call most likely woke them up.
Okay.
They handle their business, they take care of it, make sure it's covered, and then they go to work the next day. It's not a separate shift.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions. Ms. Hammonds will send out a notice today. We'll meet again at 9:30 in the morning to vote on this bill. So without any further questions, meeting adjourned.
In the
In the morning.